Testing, testing, testing. Testing, testing. Testing, 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 testing. Me. Is that even the right microphone? Is this the right microphone? I think it is. Maybe not. It's so hard to tell. Alright, I think that's the right microphone, so I'm just gonna go from there. Are we gonna go through Contention is All You Need? How's it going, Ed? No. Today's gonna be a pretty relaxed, just coding stream, so just some coding and chilling. We're gonna be working on a robotic cat project that I've been messing around with. How's it going, Christopher? Yeah, it's not going to be as entertaining as a paper stream, so feel free to ask questions if you want, interrupt. It doesn't need to be on topic, so whatever you guys want to ask, I'm here for you. All right, so right now I'm SSHing into the Raspberry Pi. I have the Raspberry Pi and my computer on a local network. So I have also tunneled into the Raspberry Pi so that I can expose a port on this computer and I can view a GradIO interface from it. So I'm going to go in here into the, let me make this a little bit bigger. Then let me run this GradIO wiggle. GradIO is the front end package that seems to be more and more popular. But here we go. Okay, so that's the camera that we have. It's not, this doesn't look like anything, but it's basically upside down staring at a window, so that's why it looks weird. But I'm running a ImageNet classification model. Actually quite a small, simple model, so it's not very, this one here. Torch Vision, which is PyTorch's vision package. And then in this Torch Vision, they have a MobileNet v2. MobileNet is a model architecture family of convnets. I think they're actually ResNets that were designed to run on mobile phones. They're quite old at this point, but they can run on a Raspberry Pi, especially if they are quantized, which is what is happening here. And I basically just give it the images coming from the camera, and it classifies it into one of these categories. This is ImageNet 1K. If you guys ever wanted to know what ImageNet 1K is, these are all the categories in ImageNet 1K. Birdhouse, boathouse, binoculars, so on. And I picked out the ones that are actually cat related. So if it triggers anything that looks like a cat, it'll then wiggle with the servos. So everything from 281 to 293 in terms of ImageNet category IDs. And you got things like snow leopard, panthera, lion, cheetah, tiger, cat. So all of these are similar classes, so if it triggers any of those, it works. But that's basically what's happening here. You can actually see me. That's my leg right there. And yeah, this just kind of runs indefinitely. It just keeps running over and over again, limited by only the inference speed of the model itself. Can't open camera by index, okay. We're gonna kill that, because that's not what we want to do today. What we want to do today is integrate the I think the first thing we're going to try is the GPT API, just because the GPT API is external, right? It's a cloud inference, which means that you don't have to have any compute running on the Raspberry Pi. So we're going to go ahead and copy some of our stuff because we've used the GPT API so many times for so many other projects that it's kind of pointless to re-implement it. So we're just going to copy paste it from our previous projects. I think I have. What project should I use? I feel like not that. Yeah, Paperbot. Paperbot has a good GPT API in there. Where is it? So we're going to need this set OpenAI key for sure. Bring that in there. New file. GPT.py. That in there. We no longer have this time and log. Let's import OpenAI. What else are we going to need? We're going to need behavior. I don't think we need that. This one here, GPT text. I've copy pasted this in like 50 different side projects at this point. You're just using one servo, right? I think you would use 3 servos. No, I have 2 servos, so the robot itself is composed of 2 servos. I can actually show you here. So you basically have one servo that controls the rotation this way, and then one servo that controls, so it's kind of like the Z rotation, and then another servo that has a tilt or a pitch. But they're limited, and it's also, these are just hobby servos, so they're not super fast or anything. They're quite good though, Dynamixel servos. I would recommend them. Use a VIT to track the cat. Yeah, RT2 style is eventually what I want to do with this. But first we need to just integrate the easiest possible LLM that we can put in there, and that's going to be GPT. So let's go ahead and copy paste all the stuff that we need here. I think these here. Yeah. Let's copy this in here. We're going to need OS. So I'm looking at the imports here. So we're going to need import OS. We're going to need from typing import dict list union. We need this keys dir. So let's copy paste that from here. Yeah, keys dir. There's just a bunch of boilerplate that I keep passing around back and forth between my projects, and I don't know. Maybe it's not a good use of time. And then let's make a... Actually, we can copy it, so... Let's go here. Let's make this bigger. Let's go into our play project. We don't need to copy it here. We do need to copy it from... let's see, copy it from the Cinecam project. Make sure we're copying recursively with a -R. And copy it here. Did we actually copy that? Should have an API so we could play with the cat during the streams. That was kind of my initial intention. This is actually an older project that like I was working on this earlier in the year and then I just kind of abandoned it, and now with the RT2 papers I'm going to come back to it. So it's kind of like a little goal I have for sure, is to have it kind of interactable via Discord, so kind of like Paperbot was, but in this way you'll be able to kind of play with the cat, which should be kind of cool. Why did that not copy? What? Is there nothing in Simicam keys? LS Simicam keys. I mean, they're here. Make directory dot keys. Directory dot keys. Okay, there we go. And now we can copy recursively here. Into dot keys. Alright, and now we should come here, and yeah, we see all of our keys that are there, and let's make sure to add it to the git ignore here. In fact, we can just do one better and copy from the git ignore of Paperbot. Where is it? Do we want all of this? Yeah, we should get all of this. CSV files, data logs, okay. I don't know, all this, like, coding nowadays just feels so bad, just because it feels like I'm wasting my time. It feels like I'm drawing things manually, you know? It's kind of like, now that we have generative AI and you can generate images, do you think that people that are oil painting feel bad when they oil paint because it's like a dying art? Because I kind of feel like that way about programming a little bit, where I'll program something and then I'm just thinking about, like, why the fuck am I doing this manually? What am I? I feel like I'm just gonna, it's just a bunch of time, a waste of time. Okay, so the git ignore, you can see that the git ignore didn't ignore those properly, so we need to do everything in the keys folder like that. So then it'll ignore everything in the keys folder. All right, back to GPT. We also need the log, so log equals get name. We're going to need to import logging here. And see if there's any other stuff here that isn't coming out. The only thing that's white here is the OpenAI stuff, and that's just because this particular Python environment doesn't have the right dependencies set up. But okay, we have GPT text, and that seems good to go. Let's Control-Shift-G here, and then we're gonna say GPT API. We're gonna add it, we're gonna commit it, and we're gonna go into our Raspberry Pi, and we're gonna git pull. So now we have the code that we just changed in VS Code here in the Raspberry Pi. There's better ways to do this. You can have mounted directories on the Raspberry Pi so that you can basically edit it in real time on VS Code. There's different ways of doing it, so you don't have to basically push and pull every time you change anything, but I don't know. It's worth more trouble than you save, IMO. We should add a test here, actually. Let's do this. Let's say define GPT test. I wonder how people feel that are learning code. The same goes for writing an essay. I wouldn't have had the motivation in school if I had the possibility to do it automatically. Yeah, I'm totally with you on that. It's just, it's got to be weird, you know, because there's, like, what are you going to do, right? I think that there's a lot of kids who probably have no idea what to do anymore, what to think, you know? Like, is it worth learning anything if you know that the AIs are just going to do it way better than you anyways, you know? And you could argue that, hey, they're not as good as humans nowadays, but I think in 10 years, they're for sure going to be better at everything. Yeah. I think actually the one thing to think about that I've been thinking about is that we might actually be the smartest generation of humans. And let me explain what I mean by that. So, before we could write things down with a pencil and paper, and people would basically memorize speeches. So, like people in ancient Greece and ancient Rome, people who were orators, they would memorize like 2-hour long speeches, and they would just have that in their brain. And I don't know anybody nowadays who can do that. I don't know a single person. I've never met a person who can memorize a 2-hour speech. So because we outsourced our memory to pen and paper and now digital files, right, like your cell phone, we've kind of lost the ability to memorize things very, like, completely like that. And I feel like a similar thing is going to happen where our generation, we had to think about things. We had to look things up. We had to kind of solve math problems in our head. We had to actually think about an essay and write the essay. We had to actually write code. We actually had to debug code, right? But the generations that come after us, they're not going to have to do that. So they're probably not going to be as good at that as we are. So once you have outsourced intelligence, I think the average human becomes less intelligent. More capable, but less intelligent. The same way that we're more capable than someone like Socrates, but someone like Socrates, like, he could actually like memorize a 2-hour speech versus we can't do that. So I don't know, kind of an interesting thing to think about. This is wrong. Another aspect is there is so much technology exploiting attention now. Yeah. I think that the kids in the future are going to have different superpowers that we just don't understand. They're probably going to have these, like, the ability to pay attention to many things simultaneously is I think, a superpower that they're going to have. Like, I can already notice that. Like, when I look at Gen Z people, it feels like they can split their attention between, like, 3 monitors and they're still kind of half paying attention versus, like, I have to focus on one thing. So I don't know. Maybe it's a good thing. Get rid of Palm. Let's just test this out here on the Paperbot Conda environment. Do we have a terminal open here? Not this terminal. I want this terminal. Conda activate Paperbot. Clear. And then let's try this GPT that we just wrote. Okay. So it is working here. Let's come up with some better test cases here, right? Because ultimately, so I wrapped the Dynamixel SDK, which is basically the software module that runs the servos. Dynamixel is the company that makes these servos. Maybe just to give you guys an idea of what these look like. These are actually the servos that they use in these little humanoids. So if you guys remember that DeepMind paper where they had little humanoid robots playing soccer, they use Dynamixel servos. And they're also used in the TurtleBot. This is a robot, kind of mobile robot platform that's very popular in the ROS, the Robot Operating System community. But Dynamixel robots, or Dynamixel servos, very clean. There's a bunch of different types of servos. They're kind of obviously not super expensive. These are like hobby priced, so you can realistically buy these. I actually forget which ones these are. They're not the bigger ones. There's some of these smaller ones here. I think they might be these ones. I'm not sure. But the Dynamixel SDK, there's C SDK, and then there's a Python SDK. And obviously the Python SDK is way slower. But it's more of a pain to pull the GPT API into C than it is to pull the Dynamixel API into Python. So that's kind of what I did. I just made a little wrapper over the Servo SDK, Dynamixel SDK, so that we can just use GPT API in Python like this. Ed. For now, I'm just trying to study with the motivation to get better at AI. I think that's the best motivation to us, or maybe I'm just coping. Yeah, one thing that I'm kind of thinking about is I feel like as these LLMs have come out, I feel like I almost want to go back. I want to like learn more about physics and kind of math and the actual underlying things like linear algebra, because I feel like that having a good intuition about like what you're actually doing with these AI systems is more important than just like knowing all the syntax for Python, because I think that kind of stuff, like the syntax for Python, and that's not going to be as important. I think maybe for programming, knowing data types and kind of the difference between simple algorithms, like things like just time complexity, memory complexity, like those kind of concepts, I think are still going to be timeless, where even if programming completely disappears and you are talking to the chatbot and the chatbot's writing all the code for you, being able to understand time complexity, memory complexity, like that's still going to be useful. But knowing how to use the Dynamixel SDK, like this is a complete waste of time, because this is just going to disappear in a couple years. Yeah. Okay, what were we doing? We were here. Let's move that there. Let's put this here. And then I think we were trying to do... Yeah, so you see here, the problem here is we're getting a bunch of debug prints because it's printing out the whole thing every time, which is kind of a pain. We don't want that. It's this one here. So why don't we do this? Why don't we set it to info here? So we'll set the logger to info just so we don't see these debug prints, and we can actually get a little bit better there. So let's also do this for model in GPT 3.5 Turbo and GPT 4. So now we can kind of write some test cases and then see what the difference is between 3.5 and 4. Yeah, I think it's going to be convenient for kids nowadays because the programming language of the future is going to be English, which is weird to think about, but Python is basically that, right? If you look at C code versus Python code, and if you look at C code versus assembly or like machine code, right? Every generation, the programming languages just got closer and closer and closer to English, and I think the very last step is going to happen in this next 5 years, where basically you're going to be programming in English. You're just going to talk to GPT. We're already seeing the beginnings of that, right? Where you just kind of like talk to it, and then it'll write it all for you. Okay. We want a system prompt for this. So let's try. Got a system. System prompt is going to be a string. We should put a type here. This should be a string. And 5 years. Yeah, 5 years is like my go-to, kind of far away, but not super far away. Like my predictions always come down to basically either 5 years or 10 years away. So I think like full, you're just talking to the LLM and you never open up a code editor. I feel like that's 5 years away. System. You are a robot control module. For you output trajectories for a 2DOF robot arm. Let's also do kind of what we were doing before here as well. We'll kind of do something like this. Okay, what do we want? We also want, given a description of a trajectory, describe or output the trajectory as a comma, output the trajectory. And just because it's really annoying to do this, I kind of have this pattern that I'm developing where I go like this and I just make it a list of strings. Just because it's easier to see. Not because this is actually a good pattern, because this is actually a bad pattern, but I care more about my readability than I do about the actual pattern itself. Okay. So what does a trajectory look like? So a trajectory, Jesus, kind of looks like this. So here when I'm testing my servos, trajectory is a series of frames, so keyframes. Kind of I'm borrowing from the animation world, where you basically, any animation is a discretized sequence of frames. And the way I initialize these motors, basically I normalize them to 0 and 1. So 1 is the maximum position of the motor, and then 0 is the minimum position of the motor. So something like this. Actually, it might be better. It might be better to just rewrite this crap. Let's actually go back. Let's see if the OpenAI GPT API, have they changed this recently? Completions API, function calling. I want to do in context few shot. Okay, so role system user. This is exactly what I want. But I don't really want the assistant. Okay, let me do this. And I can replace this crap here. Making functions that wrap other functions. That's the beauty of Python there. Do we still have stop? Usage, all this other stuff is the same. And do we just want to borrow their format here? So why don't we borrow their format? Rather than crafting the prompt ourselves, let's just take this thing here, which is a list of dictionaries of strings and strings. So this is the data type of the prompt that they want. And they're calling it messages, so let's just call it messages as well, just to be consistent here. Let's get rid of the system here. And at this point, we're literally just fucking calling. We're just wrapping this exact same thing. So, all right. We we can get rid of this. Why is this complaining? This should be here. Let's put that there. Yeah, and even though I'm sitting here coding, this is more of a Q&A session or chatting session. Whatever you guys want to talk about, just feel free to interrupt. I'm just kind of writing some crap down anyways. Why does it not like models? I think it's not indented correctly. Still doesn't like it. Oh, it's because this bracket there. All right, perfect. Let's get rid of this debug statement. And now let's create drag our system prompt, put it up here. And we'll do this. Dot join. And then here we're gonna put our weird system prompt. And again, this is not a good pattern, what I'm doing here, where I'm making a list of strings and then joining it with spaces like that. Like, that's not a good pattern. It's very slow for no reason, but the reason I'm doing it is for readability. Okay, so now that we've told it the system prompt, we're gonna give it like a little supervised data set. Mini in context supervised learning data set. So let's say I asked, give me a min, max, min trajectory. Then we would want this LLM to answer with 0, 0.0, 1.0, 0.0. Let's also tell it the trajectory is a list of tuples, of float tuples between 0.0 and 1.0. Should I put a period there? I don't know, is that going to confuse it? Okay, so let's actually make this a list of tuples here. Is a comma separated list. Comma separated list. Something like this. This is going to be annoying to parse though. Yep, that's correct right there. Maybe let's introduce a new kind of character. Let's do that. So actually, if we look at the RT2 paper, let's actually pull that up. RT2, not TRT2, RT2. Let's see what they actually do. So the way that they do this in this paper, see if we can actually pull it up. Yeah, so they just have the actions separated with spaces and they're integers. So maybe that's what we need to do. The trajectory is a space separated list of integers between 0 and 255. So let's do the integer one as well. We'll actually, we're going to try all of these, but I think part of the reason they decided to do the integers that are separated with spaces is because it's actually less tokens. And if you have a robot running at a high control rate, saving a little bit of tokens is probably worth it. So here we go. 0, 0, 255, 255, 0, 0. Actually, you know what? Let's do this. Is there a new line character? Like that? So there's three total keyframes. Give me a min-max trajectory with 3 keyframes. And now let's give it another example. Give me a mini pulse. You know, you're basically kind of giving it a couple examples to demonstrate what you want. So how about this? Give me a sine trajectory or a square function trajectory with 6 keyframes. So we basically get this same thing like this: 0, 0, 0, 0, 255, 255, 255, 0, 0. I really don't like this new line character though. Here they just have the output is the action itself, but each inference is just one output. I think you can get multiple. So it's like, do you want it to output trajectories or do you want it to output individual keyframes within a trajectory? Christopher, I was thinking to create an app to visualize conversations using Whisper plus GPT to interact with some JS library to create the visualizations. Yeah, you can do that for sure. I think the UI is actually kind of a huge opportunity right now, right? Because these UIs, like, honestly aren't that great. Like, it still feels like, especially for code, like the UI is kind of trash. Like the fact that I have to like alt tab into this Chrome tab and then like I type my thing like give me code for X and then I have to copy paste it in here and I'm still manually moving things around. Like, I feel like there's a lot of opportunity to turn this into like kind of a more of a different interface. I don't know what it's going to look like. It's going to be maybe something like a Jupyter notebook and a chat window together. I don't exactly know, but new line character gets better performance. I don't know. All right. And this is how we're going to figure it out. This is why we're writing this test case. We're going to say, give me a triangle function trajectory with 4 keyframes. Okay, so this is the message. System. That's not the system. This is the message. All right. And then the model, and we're pretty good here. So I'm going to also hit Control-Shift-I, which will configure it. Let's just use the black formatter. That looks absolutely disgusting, but you know what? That's fine. And let's try it out. GPT text got an unexpected keyword argument message. I think we called it messages. Let's do that. Nope. It's called messages. Let's just use messages. All right. So give me a triangle function trajectory with 4 keyframes, and the answer was 0, 0, 0, 0. So that's incorrect. This is only 2 keyframes according to our convention here. So why don't we try a couple different delimiters here. So we're going to do model. We're also going to do keyframe delimiter. And then here, we're going to replace this with the keyframe delimiter. So Control-Shift-H, not Control-Shift-H, just Control-H. We're going to replace this new line character with that. And let's start over here. Replace it. And now we need to turn these into F strings in order for it to sub in the value of that keyframe delimiter. All right. Now you can actually do this. Let's go to GPT-4 and we're going to say, let's hide this. And let's say, can you add a decorator to this function such that multiple models and keyframe delimiters are tested? Here is the function signature. So we're not going to give it the whole function. All I wanted to is just to write the decorator on top of that. Not a fan of multi-cursor editing. Highlight plus Control D. What the fuck is that? Control D? I don't know. I'm not cool, Snooks. I don't know what you're referring to. Decorator run and multiple keyframe. The function should run multiple times with each set of quarks. Right, so even though like programming has gotten to the point where the code interpreter can do this for you, right? Being able to like speak the same language, right? Where you know what a quark is, you know what a decorator is, like that's still somewhat useful. All right, let's do this multi-run. Let's copy this here. Get rid of that. I'm gonna put this decorator here, multi-run. What exactly is this doing? Decorator, wrapper, args, set, func, star, 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 result. This actually just sounds more confusing. So you have to basically pass it a dictionary. A list of dictionaries. Like this. Let's do GPT frame like that. And let's also try the comma delimiter. And let's actually print out log.info that, so we can actually get the delimiter and then what it's using. Okay, so this is looking a little bit better, right? So using GPT 3.5 Turbo with the keyframe delimiter being the new line, we get this, and we know that's incorrect because it's supposed to be 4 keyframes. So this is the same GPT 3.5 Turbo, but now we're using the comma delimiter, and it seems like it's a little bit better here, right? It's getting 00, 255, 0, 0, 255, 255, 0, 0, 0, but it's still a little bit confused here. It still has like a new line. What the fuck is going on here? Okay. And I think that's because we still have this for loop here. We can actually get rid of that. Let's put this in a little variable here. Let's say output. Move this up here. And we're going to print the output at the end. And it doesn't like this. Get rid of that. Control Shift I. Ooh, so much better. Okay. Okay, I don't like that it put the comma there at the end, but this is mostly correct. Right? And actually, let's make a parsing function here. Parse trajectory. it takes a trajectory, which is going to be a string, right? That's what's going to come out of this GPT call. Not a fan of multi-cursor. I spent some time learning Vim. It's such a pain. I stopped when GPT 3.5 come out. Yeah, Vim is still kind of useful. Like I use it, for example, in this Raspberry Pi. I'm SSH'd into this Raspberry Pi right now, but I can't open up an editor. So like if I wanted to make a little edit here, then it's convenient if I can just go into this and then do my little edit, you know. Ooh. Little hit the I key to insert, then do my little print hello servos, and then you hit your colon, right quit, and there you go. Hello servos. There is no status packet. Like I disconnected something. But other than that, Vim is, I agree, it's kind of pointless. It's just a bunch of hotkeys that we kind of remembered. And unfortunately now as well, I've kind of fucked this up. So I'm going to do git stash. So, okay, now we're clean. Okay. So let's go back to this parsing the trajectory. We're getting the trajectory string, which is going to be this here. And we need to turn it into a list of tuples. So you split on that. That's not correct. Okay, so this is not correct. First, we got to get for keyframe in trajectory split. And actually, we can be clever here and also use the delimiter. Let's call it keyframe delimiter. And then we'll use this as well over here. Trajectory. For value in keyframe split, this is making it a generator, but I think what we really want is a trajectory here. And this trajectory is going to be a list of tuples of ints, like that. And we're going to need to add a tuple into our typing here. If we hit Control-Shift-I, it should reorder that. I enjoy a combination of Vim and VS Code. Inside VS Code, some key bindings save some time. Yeah, it's all about key bindings. Like, I definitely fought that for many years, but then I realized that the more you can bind things and the more you can improve your developer speed, the better you can write code. Although maybe that doesn't matter anymore. Maybe developer speed is irrelevant because you're no longer limited by how fast you can type and how fast you can do things. You're limited by kind of how fast you can copy paste. Okay, so let's do raw output, or yeah, we still want to print out the raw output here. Raw output, and then we'll do parse or trajectory equals parse trajectory, and then log.info trajectory. And let's make these log debugs here. And then we'll turn this into debug. Okay. No, we also don't want this. We want keyframe dot split. This should be values equals, then assert length of values is 2, I guess, and then trajectory dot appends its values. And we can also do this assert 0 is less than or equal to int of val underscore val for val in values. Can I do this? No, I think I have to do 2 of these like this. assert all, like that. This is like super slow assert statement because it's going to create a list with a bunch of true false statements, and then it's going to evaluate whether everything in that list is true. So this is very slow, but int is less than or equal to 256, I think we want, or 255, something like that. Let's also add more things here. Let's say min value 0, max value 255, and let's also say num servos equals 2. So we're going to replace this here with num servos. Make this an f string, make this an f string, and then say it's in between. We could probably let Copilot complete that. There you go. All right. And then we can actually give this here into our parse trajectory function. Snooks. In VS Code, Control D on Windows should select the next duplicate of the highlighted text and allow you to overwrite all matches without using find replace. Yeah, I don't. This is a Linux machine, so we can see. Let's do Control Shift P. Open keyboard shortcuts. And you're just talking about Control plus D. Add selection to next find match. Is that the shortcut you're talking about? Num servos, min value, and max value. Okay. But now our little supervised learning examples are going to be incorrect. So we need to multiply these. Let's just see if this works for now. List has no attribute split. All right, so for keyframe in trajectory dot split, trajectory is a list. That doesn't seem correct, right? Parse trajectory output. Output is a list here. And the reason it's outputting a list is because we're not just running into an error here. God, these debug statements are so crap. Let's go back to info here. Okay, so the raw output is this, and it's a list. It's no good. It should be a string. Let's put a breakpoint right here. Let's run it. Come on, Control Shift 1. I think I have to use the right profile. Profiles. Ook. All right. Now we can Control Shift 1. Oh my God. Run and debug. Run this Python file. No module named OpenAI. Let's make sure to use the right Python environment here. Which one do we want? We want Paperbot. Run debug. Okay, so this output, it is a string, which means here it's a string. Because we literally named this variable. Okay. Let's call it this. Trajectory string. All right, perfect. Kill it, run it. I always use string split and list split. Okay, so we're here. Keep going. Hit this breakpoint. Keep running. Got an assertion error here. The length of this values is 1 and the number of servos is 2. Because really what we want, what is values here? It's just an empty string. I think you want this. I thought keyframe split returned an actual list, but I think you have to actually put it into a list. Why is my computer not recognizing my control shift? There we go. All right. What's keyframe? Empty. So it's splitting on, what's the trajectory string? Splitting on the delimiter. The delimiter is comma. When it splits on the comma, it just gets space. It should get 0, 0, 0. Huh. That's weird. Let's go into our console here. Let's do our trajectory dot split. We're going to copy that. Blank for blank in that. Okay, so you see we're getting the trajectories, but then at the very end we get this empty string here, which is no good. That we don't want that. So let's tell it, do not add an extra delimiter at the end of the trajectory. Let's see if that fixes it. It did. All right. Now what are we running into? Length of values. 1 is... Okay, no, it didn't solve it. We're still getting the same... let's actually go here. Let's put a breakpoint right here just so we can see it. So far we still have this trajectory. See, it's still putting a comma at the end of it. So even though we told it not to put the comma there, it doesn't give a shit and it put the comma there. Do not add an extra delimiter. Maybe if we do that. Is it because we have an extra delimiter in our examples that we're giving it? Yeah, here's the problem, you see? We put an extra delimiter at the end there. So even though we told it in the system prompt to not do that, in the supervised data set that we gave it in context, we had an extra one there. So let's actually run this, see if that works. All right, it works good. Our tests are passing. So let's see if it still works regardless if we get rid of this extra part of the system prompt, right? Every part of the system prompt that we can get rid of is tokens that we save, right? And we pay for all the tokens. So if you can save on tokens, You are a robot control module. What if we get rid of that? What if we just do this? Given a description of the trajectory, output the trajectory. You output trajectories for a blank. Maybe we don't even need that. Let's see if it works with just that. Very limited context here. Or system. Ooh, seems like it's working. Alright. It's actually... Why is this outputting none? I think it's because we need to return this here. Okay. Looking good. So far, so good. Obviously, this new line delimiter isn't working for shit, but this one is. That seems perfectly fine. Okay. Let's also try to add different number of servos here. So what we can do here is we can craft a little list on the fly here, and we can say space dot join zero, a list that just contains that 0 times num servos. So this is kind of a hacky thing here, but it's basically going to create a list of zeros of the length num servos, and then it's going to join it with a space. So that'll let us try different numbers of servos and sees if it still works. So let's do the same thing here, except with 255. And then let's do the same thing here with the zeros. Okay. This example is a little bit complicated, so let's call it a blip. Trajectory with 6 keyframes. 2 keyframes. And the blip will be like this. It's going to be 0, and then it'll jump up to maybe 10 or something like that. And then give me a triangle function trajectory with 4 keyframes. Let's make this a num keyframe so we can also mess with that. So we're kind of creating like a weird set, kind of like a test case that we can mess with here. So let's do desired keyframes or something like that. Num keyframes. Four. And then let's also pass this into our little parse function here. You know what? I don't think we need all of that. Why don't we just... actually, let's keep that there. Num keyframes. We'll just set it equal to 4 initially. I don't think you even need the space separate list of integers. I think we're going to actually do this as well. So the trajectory is a servo delimiter. So we're going to be messing with the servo delimiters and the keyframe delimiters. Servo delimiter right now is going to be empty space like that, which means that we can then come here, 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 Control H for that, substitute it with servo delimiter, and then come up here, replace, nope, that's not what we want. We want without these brackets. Replace, 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 replace. Perfect. And what I was going to do before is rather than do this crap here, let's go like this. Just so we don't have to like keep piping everything in through these quarks. Then we get rid of this parse trajectory function. We can pull out this parse trajectory function later once we're done testing this, but I want to kind of see which delimiters and are the best output. Is that what we called it? We called it output like this. All right. Now, let's try some combinations here. So we got keyframe delimiter of that. Let's do, you know, I'd like to not have to explicitly put every single combination, but it goes through all the combinations. Let me see. First of all, let's run this, make sure we even have working code here. Seems fine. 270004. Okay. But now we need to assert that the length of this trajectory object that comes out is the right number of keyframes. So let's do assert length of trajectory equals num keyframes. And rather than using this decorator, there's like a built-in one into Python. What is the built-in version of this decorator used in the Python testing module? God, it's not getting it. Python test, unit test. Cases, is it maybe called? Yeah, test case, test suite. I forget what it's called, but there's basically this decorator where you can add it, and it does all of them. Oh, PyTest, here you go. Import PyTest. The pip install PyTest. Do I have to pip install PyTest? Is that even a real thing? Python testing framework. Yeah, you do. Okay. So quickly install that. We're running this in the Paperbot environment, so let's go ahead and make sure we have that. Pip install PyTest. All right, now we got it. I think we gotta close this. So Alt F4, and then let's reopen. And now the PyTest should load. Yeah, there you go. Okay, perfect. And now let's copy paste this. And we can get rid of this weird decorator. All right, let's see if it still works fine. assertion error. The length of this trajectory is not the number of keyframes, which we wanted 4. That's because we're testing with this delimiter. What if we do this? Trajectory of length 1, number of keyframes should be 4. The raw output is 0, 0. At least it's doing the right thing here. So let's ask GPT to write this for us. So that's not what I wanted. Let me do a new one here. Code interpreter. I want you to expand the test cases in this test. Here is the decorator I want you, or decorator call, I want you to modify. I want to test various delimiters for both the servo and keyframe. The delimiters I want to test are comma, space, what the fuck, or comma, space, and dash new line. Why don't we try another one? Comma, space, new line, and the pipe. I also want to test different numbers of servos and keyframes. Return to me the updated decorator call. Let's see. So I basically just wanted to write out the call for me here. Yeah, I wish you didn't have to like explicitly do that. I thought that with this parameterized function, you could basically just denote the ranges that you want, and then it'll just do it for you. It's kind of annoying. All right, let's just copy a bulk of these. Put it here. And run it. Okay, so it's still running into issues here. Give me a triangle function trajectory with blank keyframes. We're giving it 4. The output of that is just incorrect right off the bat. The output is just 0, 0. Let's try with the comma. All right, so now we're trying with the comma. Still getting this error. Length of trajectory does not equal the number of keyframes. What is the raw output? The raw output is still 0, 0. What is going on here, guys? Let's say, given a description of the trajectory, output of the trajectory. Let's expand the prompt a little bit. Okay, I think maybe what happened here is whenever we did this, the trajectory is a string of a list of integers? Do we need to have the string there? What about just list of integers between that and that? And then let's say the delimiter used for the trajectory is trajectory delimiter or keyframe delimiter. And then the delimiter used for the servos is that. See if that's good. What's the output? 0, 0. Damn. Let's actually see. Make sure this is correct. We're going to say messages equals this, and then we're going to print messages or log.info messages, and then we're going to put it here just so we can see what's going on. So I'm starting to suspect that maybe we're not passing it the right thing here. All right, this is the message. Give me a min-max with 3 keyframes, 0, 255, 0. Give me a blip with 2 keyframes, 0, 0, 10, 10. Give me a triangle with 4 keyframes and the output is 0, 0. Okay, so it's definitely fucking up here. But more important than that, it's not even using these parameterizations. You see how it's using the new lines which are coming in here, so it's not actually... Well, shit. Maybe we should go back to the weird decorator that we had. Let's pull that thing up. This one. Let's bring back the weird, shitty decorator. And let's use our little decorator at multi-run. In multi-run, we're going to give it a list of dictionaries where each dictionary is basically that. So let's do this, that, and let's see if actually Copilot can start filling this in for us. Come on, Copilot, model. GPT 3.5 Turbo. Num servos 2, num keyframes. And delimiter. Servo delimiter. Keyframe delimiter. There we go. All right. Let's copy the same thing, and then here, let's put our little print statement back in here, log.info, running with args. Let's rerun this. All right, that worked. Perfect. So all of our assertion statements passed. And it ran with both of the test cases. So far so good. All right, but now let's try more variations of this. So can you give me more variations of the run quargs as shown below? We're going to give it this multi-run decorator call here, and then we're going to ask it to basically create more variants of that. Here are some examples of variations. All right, so it's delimiter, keyframe delimiter. Here it changed the number of servos and the number of keyframes. Here it changed the delimiter to a tab. It's kind of interesting. Keyframe delimiter, it chose a semicolon. Here you have a comma, tab. Okay, that's kind of useful. I'm going to copy that. Put that in here. And why don't we actually do this? So we're going to wrap this entire thing here in a try catch. And if we get an assertion error, right? So if something happens and we get an assertion error because of that, then we're going to create a little list of bad configs. And if we get that error, we're going to say bad configs append argset, and then at the very end of all of this, we're going to print or log.info bad configs. Okay, so like this, we're going to go through all of these, and then if any of these fail, it'll print them out for us at the end. The model GPT-3 does not exist. Okay, so it seems like, yeah, these here, where it's using a different model. Let's actually do this, GPT-4. Let's make these GPT-4. All right. So good. So far, so good. It's trying out all these trajectories. And here are the bad configs. Okay. Can you separate this string into new lines so it is easier for me to see? That's a little bit too stop generating. Let's just ask it which config variables seem to cause issues. Let's see if we can actually get GPT-4 to tell us only one message at a time. Okay, so it's still outputting this thing here. But let's see if we can get GPT-4 to read this and then tell us what is the issue here. Is it this specific keyframe delimiter leads to issues? Is it GPT-4 that leads to issues? Is it the number of servos that leads to issues? It's not directly clear. Okay. 2, 3, or 4 are present in bad configuration. Num keyframes are present in bad configuration. All possible servo delimiter and keyframe delimiter options. All right, that wasn't super helpful. What if we get rid of the I got a crazy idea. Let's double up this decorator. This is some next level hack right here, but we're basically going to double up the decorator, and the inner loop is going to be the keyframe and servo delimiters, and the outer loop is going to be the model type. So let's go here. Here we're going to test out the different keyframe and servo delimiters, and then here There's a little multi-cursor action for you guys. We're going to get rid of that. So this is going to take actually quite a second to run because let's get rid of the GPT-4s for now. 2, 4, 3, 5, 2, 4. Let's actually do this as well. Just because GPT-4 inference takes a little bit longer, so we'll be here tomorrow if we do this too long. Space, tab, comma, tab, comma, tab. Let's get rid of maybe one of these here. Make this a colon, make this a pipe. Okay. Now let's run this. And I can't really see this here. You see how like it's hard to read. So what I'm going to try to do here is I'm going to turn this into a warning. And then maybe that'll be easier to read because I think it should come up as a different color. And actually even better than that, let's turn it into a warning, and then let's come down here and we're going to make the log level warning. So only warning messages get printed. All right, here are your bad configs. Servo delimiter, tab, keyframe delimiter, semicolon, comma, a new line, colon, space, pipe, colon. So it really seems like commas and spaces are maybe the way to go here. Let's try to handcraft one here. Let's do servo delimiter, space, and comma. This one should work. So let's see if this works fine. Perfect. All right, no bad configs. All right. So now that we know that that one works, let's start getting rid of some of these system prompts here. See if we can get rid of that. Now let's try. No bad configs. Oh, there we go. We got a config. Variable result referenced before assignment. Okay, so here we're ending up in this try catch and it's failing assertion error and then it's trying to append the result here. So we actually want to move this up here like that. Run it again. Okay, so it did find one bad config here. Why did it get that? Why was that a bad config? Because we deleted this. So that's not looking good. That means we do need this part here in order to get it. Multi-run inception. Yeah, do we need another multi-run here? How about this? System prompt list of strings. Then we're going to copy this. Copy that out. We're going to put the system prompt there. And then we're going to make another multi-run. System prompt. All right, so we're going to try a couple different system prompts here. I'm going to close this bracket. then close the function call. Oh shit, no, we can't do that because we don't have the, fuck, we don't have the variables. Alright, never mind. Never mind. Abort. Abort. Why don't we try this? Let's see if we can get the pipe for the keyframe delimiter, and then the space for the servo delimiter. I kind of want to see if that one works. All right, that works. Nice. What about the comma for the servo and then the pipe for the keyframe? Okay, that does not work. Good to know. Is the pipe symbol used? Is that token used in other things? You know, that could be also an issue, is that the pipe token has like a bunch of other stuff that's kind of associated with it. Okay. Let's commit this code. Call it testing delimiter testing GPT trajectory maker. All right. Oh. So now that we have a little system prompt and we have the right delimiters, we know that it works for a variety of number of servos, variety of number of keyframes. Let's actually write a function that we would actually call. So this is got a bunch of asserts, it's got a bunch of crap that we don't actually want in the actual final runtime. So let's actually make a GPT trajectory. And then we're going to have a trajectory description, which is going to be a string. And maybe num servos, min value, max value, and num keyframes. Like that. Oop. Most of these quargs, we're not going to be necessarily changing the values of these, but... And the keyframe delimiter, we decided it was going to be the comma. And then the servo delimiter is the space. And then we can get rid of this. And this should output a list of tuples of integers. As long as these are integers, so let's do that. All right. Actually, before we move on, I actually feel like I should try out different min-max values here. But the problem is if we try different min-max values, then we're going to have to convert between ints and floats, and then we're going to have to change all this crap, so I don't know, maybe not. Let's do this. Copy this. Come here. Put that there. We don't need to have this as a separate variable. I guess we can keep it there just so it's a little bit cleaner. Get rid of this. Get rid of this. Clean this bad boy up. The trajectory description is going to come here. give me a trajectory description trajectory with num keyframes. The model is going to be the model here. GPT 3.5 Turbo was working pretty well, so I think we just keep it. We can actually be more clean here and do this. I don't know if that's more clean or not, but there you go. Create this trajectory. And as you split through the output of this text, GPT text call, I think the reason that it doesn't like this split is because the output here needs to be string. So you see, now that we've told Python that the output of this function is a string, then it can properly say, yup, it's totally fine to use the dot split on that. And here we return trajectory, and let's append that. So this is largely this exact same function we wrote, except now we just got rid of the assert statements. We kind of condensed it a little bit, and we got rid of some of these comments, made it a little bit more condensed. And this now means that we can call it. So we can come down here. Instead of calling GPT test, let's say GPT trajectory. We're going to print this. And let's say squiggle. Actually, we need the length of the description. So num keyframes. This should be higher up. Squiggle with num keyframes equals 5. Then let's do a swoosh with num keyframes equals 10. Or a swoosh with 3, and then let's do a sine cosine with num keyframes equals 10. Alright, let's see if it gets those. Joseph Enox, I'm so lost. Don't worry about it. Like, live coding is kind of not really good entertainment, to be honest. So I apologize for that. That's why I don't really do many of these streams anymore, because it's in any kind of coding problem, right? There's a bunch of context that I'm operating on, and even if I'm saying what I'm thinking out loud, it's like there's so many other functions that I'm referencing. It's like I have an idea of this entire project in my head, so like I'm kind of just moving around, but you guys don't have that same context, so it's very difficult to understand what am I even doing here, what are these variables, what am I trying to do, and so on. So, I don't know, my kind of idea was that I could still do these coding streams, but it would be more of like kind of like a hangout chat, you know, so if you guys want to chat about something, distract me, pull me out, we can like research some stuff, you know, look at some stuff. The coding is just to fill the background time. Okay. So no API key provided. It's running into an error here because we're not setting the OpenAI key. We gotta take this little function, put it here. Now let's run it. All right, here we go. So here are some robot trajectories. So here's a squiggle. Here's a swoosh. And then here's a cosine. And you know, it kind of looks like it's, this looks a little weird. It goes from 0 to 127 to 191 to 223, 239, 247, 251, 253, 254, 255. What if I make this 40 frames? Does it eventually cosine? Invalid literal with base 10. Okay, so it ran into an error here. So some of the values. If not, keyframe, continue. So we'll add a little bit of a debug there. I'll take advantage and ask you a question. It's not coding related, but more advice. I've been interested in pursuing research in AI, but I'm told research isn't too stable or the right path. Do you think that's fairly accurate? I want to work mostly on research papers, pre-training to developing AI agents in games and building platforms. Yes, I mean, there's different ways to do research, right? You can do research in academia, or you can do research in an industry. Technically, like usually in order to do research in industry, you have to do research in academia, and research in academia can be kind of like there's not a lot of necessarily good things. Like you're not getting paid a lot, you're kind of at the whim of your advisor, and you might not get to work on what you want, but I think academia has the most freedom. Maybe I'm incorrect there. In industry, it can be pretty hard unless you have papers that are famous, or if you have a PhD, or if your advisor is famous or something. It's going to be difficult to get into the limited amount of research roles at companies that have the money to even do research, right? So even myself, when I was at Google Brain, I was just a low rank person. You know, everybody else had PhDs, so like nobody really took my opinion seriously. And I think that you'll probably run into that same thing, where even if you're self-taught and even if you kind of know a lot and try to do your best and you work hard, there's still going to be this kind of elitism within research groups where it's going to be difficult to be the one who gets to decide what research to do. Yeah. I think actually if you're interested in research, it's because you like building new things and you like creating things. And I think that maybe one thing that I would recommend is to look at startups. You know, I've actually worked at a bunch of startups. I even made my own startup at one point, and a startup feels very much like a research position where you're kind of trying to innovate and trying to be creative and trying to build something unique. So I think right now in the AI ML space, honestly, the best place is startups, because there's a lot of startups. They have a ton of money and they're working on pretty cool problems. So you're not going to be doing fundamental research. You're not going to be like doing like math, you know, but you'll get to work on cool bleeding edge stuff and you'll get paid pretty well. One website that I would recommend is Work at a Startup. This is a Y Combinator kind of like job post board. And every single Y Combinator batch, like all the companies will post their jobs on here, right? And at this point, like pretty much all the jobs are AI jobs. Like there's so many AI jobs here, right? If you look for engineering, lead data scientist, machine learning engineer. There's a lot of software engineers here, but like AI engineer, SWE, AI engineer. Just go here and just spam, because these people have a lot of money. You're going to get a pretty good salary here, and you're actually going to have a lot of control, a lot of freedom, a lot of impact. And the experience that you gain at this kind of startup, you're going to work pretty hard, but the experience that you gain will be huge. Do startups get to publish papers as well, or is it only big companies, industries, and academia? You can publish papers as an individual person, so you don't need to be affiliated with an academic institution or a big tech company to publish papers. The problem is that the paper world is like very competitive, so it's hard to produce work that is good enough to basically get accepted into one of the big conferences unless you are doing it through a company, right? Because the dirty secret with publishing papers is that the people who review the papers, they can tell if the paper's coming out of Google Brain and DeepMind or whether it's coming out of like some rando's basement. And a lot of times they're busy. They don't have the time to actually review the whole paper, so they just kind of look at the citations. They check to see if it's coming from one of the big labs, and then they're just like, okay, rubber stamp, you're good to go. But I think if you're interested in publishing, you could probably talk to, for example, here, Picnic Health. Like, if you talk to this guy and you're like, hey, I'm interested in this machine learning role at this company, but I really want to publish a paper. Like, that's not going to be a negative, like he's going to be like, yeah, you know what? I think a paper would be awesome, So whatever you can go into these startups and into these interviews and basically just tell them that, be like, hey, I want this job, but can I also publish what I work on? And I feel like most people will probably say yes. And if the person is like, no, fuck that, we're paying you to do this and you're not allowed to publish and we don't want you to do that, then they're probably assholes anyways and you don't want to work for them. What's a pretty good salary for you? I think it depends. I think if you're working in San Francisco, it's got to be over 6 figures. Like, you got to make more than 100K if you want to live in San Francisco. But these are remote jobs, right? So you don't even need half of that if you want to work remotely. And also, like, if you want to play the salary game, that's a different beast, because you gotta kind of pick. Like, if you want to play the salary game, AI engineer might not be the job for you. You're better off kind of becoming a DevOps or software engineer. Just like learn Kubernetes, learn AWS, learn that type of stuff, and then you're gonna get paid way more, way faster, and there's gonna be more people looking for that skill set. So. I was also advised not to look into startups after my master's since I won't be able to financially do the move to a PhD or even have the experience for one. Oh, I was advised to look into startups, yeah. Startups are, I think, some of the best tech jobs. Because you also learn a lot. I think that in startups you actually learn about technical things because you're actually trying to build things. Like, big tech companies are basically just, the technical stuff doesn't matter as much as like your ability to like navigate inside a bureaucracy of people and like deal with the politics and kind of play the right games. And it's a completely different vibe. If you just want to hack and you just want to write code and you just want to build things, startups are going to be way better for you. But if you want to have kind of a relaxed job where you just kind of sit there and there's some manager dude that just gives you Jira tickets and you just have to kind of work on one Jira ticket, then you work on the next Jira ticket, and you work on the next Jira ticket, then at that point, kind of the bigger startups or the big tech companies are probably more your jam. I don't know. Random ramblings, but I'm also not like super old, so I'm still relatively, I've only been out of school maybe a little bit over 10 years, something like that. So take that with a grain of salt, I feel like somebody who's 10 years older than me might give you better advice. Okay, what are we doing here? Okay, so we're creating these trajectories. We created the trajectories. We tested them. And then we tested a couple of trajectories here. Why don't we come up with some more words? What the fuck is going on? Can I make a new chat? Can you add some more trajectories to this? Appreciate the advice. No problem. Hopefully it's useful, but sometimes I give advice that's trash and then I feel bad. But yeah, I would also recommend Google Jobs. This is another great, not like specifically Google Jobs, but Google has like a job search thing, and then you can come here and you can say machine learning, or AI actually at this point, AI, and then you say location, remote, anywhere, I think it's called, anywhere, and go. AI strategist, AI reverse engineer, AI machine learning CPU design verification engineer. So most of these are going to be pretty much, they're going to expect Python. So like you're going to need to be able to do like a Python coding interview, which is like a whole separate beast. It's not going to be as hard as like the coding interview for like a pure software role, but you should know how to do like breadth first search, depth first search, like your basic data types, stuff like that. And then the proficiency stuff here is basically they're just going to ask you generic like statistic questions. So honestly, like when people ask me about like how do I prepare and what should I learn and like what, it's like just get good at programming quizzes and basic concepts that they're going to ask you, because the only way that they can interview you, it's going to be limited to a meeting, right? So it's like they're not going to ask you things that are complicated. They're going to ask you relatively simple things. What else have we got here? I don't think you need C, C++, Java, C#. I don't think you need that for fucking AI ML jobs. These are senior staff design verification. These are like more hardcore. Deep learning scientist, here you go. This is a kind of research job. Ooh, they're using AMD GPUs though. That sounds gross. Oh, it's because it's literally AMD.com or AMD the company. Okay, I was like, why would you use fucking AMD GPUs? And it's like, that's because you're literally working at AMD. These are all in Austin, so let me get rid of the location here. Anywhere. I feel like San Francisco might even have the best. Lead front end, applied senior, advanced senior AI research scientist. All right, so what else do they have here? Participate discussions, develop models, Control F for publish. No. Collaborate with academia partners. Yeah, the more senior the research role, the more difficult it's going to be, because it's going to come down to like citations and who do you know and who's your advisor and where have you worked before. So like you almost want the engineer, like the research engineer roles, because they're going to look at how good you are, not where is your, yeah, like these type of jobs. CNNs, RNNs, these are just outdated. I just tuned in. Nothing about Cat Toy. Yeah, we were sorry, we got distracted on the Cat Toy, but we're generating some trajectories. Zigzag, spiral, ellipse, and sinusoidal. Let's put that in there. Oh. And you know what we can actually do? We can save this. We can run it. Uh-oh, I think GPT might have limited us here. What's happening? Are you providing... can we rewatch this stream later in your channel? Yeah, you can always rewatch the streams. I think on YouTube you can just click on the live and then watch them. Actually, what I do, if you guys want the... When I watch my own content, which I try to do occasionally, right? We go, click on this. Here's the hot tip. Come here into settings, go to speed, and type 2. 2x speed. That's the only way to go through my streams. And I feel like in general, like you really want to be increasing the speed of your stuff, because it just allows you to go through podcasts and stuff way faster. Okay, what happened here? This is fucking dead. Okay, so here we're outputting trajectories. Okay. And now what we're going to do is we're going to copy this. And we're going to see if we can, here is the output of the, actually here, let's make a new one. I have to go to bed. Enjoyed your review on the LK99 paper very much. No problem. Let's do GPT-4 code interpreter, and we're going to say this. We're going to give it the prints, and then we're going to give it the, what is this, 1, 2, 3, 4. So these 4. And then we're going to say, here is some Python code that prints out trajectories for a 2-DOF robot arm. Trajectories are composed of keyframes. Here is the output of these print statements. Note how the trajectories are lists of tuples, where the tuples represent the positions of a 2-DOF robot arm. And then finally, we're going to say, can you create a plot of this for me to see? I want to see the trajectories compared to each other. The y-axis should be joint position 0 to 255, and the x-axis should be keyframe. Each make one plot. Let's see if it gets it. So we're going to ask it to plot these trajectories for us. So this is code interpreter, which is actually quite good at outputting these little matplotlib plots. Any plans on reviewing some of the LK99 verification papers? Maybe. I mean, the reality is I don't know anything about fucking superconductors. You know what I'm saying? Like I was interested, but what I would actually recommend is this one, Lex Fridman Superconductivity Explained. So there was a Lex Friedman, yeah, this guy. So this guy is like this guy actually knows about superconductors and materials and stuff, and this guy explains superconductivity. So if you're interested in that, I would definitely look at this this podcast, and specifically this one here. This will definitely give you a little better idea, but I don't know. I think we just wait a little bit. I think we wait, and then soon enough people will verify it, because even the verifications that we have right now are still a little bit sketch. It's like random people in China with a video of like, hey, here's a floating little piece of something. But I think if you wait a couple more weeks, we'll have verifications that are way nicer. Okay, what is this? Trajectories for a 2DOF robot arm keyframe. This is completely wrong. Let me edit this. Let me get rid of the one that has 40 because I think it's confusing it. And then let me get rid of this. Plot each joint as a separate line and each trajectory in one color. Lex Friedman, always super interesting and useful, yeah. I agree. It's a very underrated podcast. Maybe not underrated. I think it's pretty mainstream at this point. Is this still going? Okay. Training dynamics across batch sizes. This is still working. Plot these for me. Plot my trajectories. All right, so here you go. Let's make this a little bit smaller. So what are we looking at here? What we're looking at is trajectories that we generated using GPT. So in the beginning part of this stream, we use GPT to generate trajectories for us, right? And a trajectory is just a set of positions that we're going to use for our robot arm, which is really just 2 servos. And we gave it a couple examples of trajectories, and then in the beginning part of the stream, we were trying to figure out what delimiters we should use. Delimiters between the servos, delimiters between the keyframes, and we were testing it out with different numbers of servos, different numbers of keyframes, and we ended up on using a comma delimiter and a space delimiter. And then that means that we can basically ask GPT to give me a blank trajectory with blank keyframes. So now we can say, give me a squiggle trajectory with 5 keyframes, give me a swoosh trajectory with 3 keyframes, and give me a cosine trajectory with 40 keyframes. So now here we're asking it to plot this, right? So let me actually bring the servo. So we got this servo here, right? So this will be 0, and then this is like 255, right? So a squiggle, you see both of them move, and then it's kind of hard to read, but a zigzag goes up and then down and then up and then down and then up. So that does seem like a zigzag, right? So if we ran the zigzag, it would basically go like this, and then like this, and then like this. So it will go back and forth and back and forth. And what that's actually going to look like with the cat toy at the end of it, it's going to look different, right? But the idea is that you would have different trajectories, and then hopefully the cat is interested in certain trajectories and not others, and so on. But yeah, there we go. Let's see what else you guys are talking about here. I don't know much about your channel or GPT, but I watched your upload on adversarial attacks. Found it very interesting. Yeah, it should be cool. There's so many cool things happening in AI and machine learning, and even just in the general world, right, with the superconductor. So maybe well known, but still underrated. Saw somewhere that Lawrence Berkeley National Lab released a paper about simulations. Actually, even better, why don't we ask Bard? Tell me about Lawrence Berkeley National Lab. Federally funded research development center, established in 1931. U.S. Department of Energy is the fucking alien people. Oh, shit. Number of national user facilities. Material science, life science, energy science. Like, this is where they keep the alien shit. The Wikipedia entry got really good. Wikipedia has now an entry for LK99. Potential. Gray-black appearance, hexagonal structure, slightly modified from lead apatite. One thing I never understood is, like, why is it not, like, fully levitating? Why is it, like, kind of partially levitating like that? Right? They, like, never explain that. Discovery. Co-author stated that one of the papers contained defects. Results expected in August 2023. It's not homogeneous. Yeah, so I think right now they're basically just baking these, right? It's like you basically mix a bunch of crap and then bake it, but the problem is that, like, it has to be this specific hexagon where one of the coppers is, or one of the leads is replaced by copper, but it doesn't make any sense to me how you would be able to achieve that repeatably, right? Like, how do you get exactly one of the leads to come off and one of the coppers to substitute? So maybe it's the kind of thing where you can try to create it, but only a small percentage of the total volume of the thing is actually the LK99. Yeah, Christopher, you actually sound like you know what you're talking about here. Seems like you've done some research. Maybe you gotta let us know what's going on here. Diamagnetic materials are repelled by a magnetic field. An applied magnetic field creates an induced magnetic field in the opposite direction, causing a repulsive force. Okay, so this is actually kind of what I thought was happening. A superconductor acts as a strong diamagnet because it expels any magnetic field entirely from its interior. Magnetic field lines. So actually, shouldn't you just be able to measure the magnetic? Can you plot these? Is there a way to get the magnetic field lines? Phenomenological explanation. 1954, German-born physicist. Ooh, this guy was a fucking Nazi. And then Heinz London. Experimental physics. Refugee scientist. So both of these people, like, there's something here, you know. It's like all of these are Nazi scientists, low key. Okay, it's over. I think we're done. We did this for 2 hours. I think I'm gonna go do some actual work. But thanks for hanging out, guys. This will be the last stream this week. I'll be back on Monday. There's a bunch of activity on the Discord, so it's gonna be hard to pick a research paper, but I'll try to post the streams. So thanks, Chris. Thanks, Snooks, Old Boy, C. Kyle, Irabu, Deadly Data, Joseph, Astringer, Tanver, Nicholas, Ed, everybody else who was listening, everybody else who asked questions. Hopefully this was kind of fun. Just hanging out, writing some code, doing some servo stuff. And yeah, let me know what you guys want more streams about later. Thanks, Christopher, for all the stuff. This is some cool stuff. All right, you guys have a great weekend. See everybody later.